Hey folks, Ragnar here. In today's video I want to talk about the significance of ideas in game design. I will be playing the first minutes of the Talos Principle, a first-person puzzle game by Crow Team, the guys that made Serious Sam. I hope this video won't spoil too much for you and rather give you a first impression. In my opinion, this game is outstanding. It has a really well thought out puzzle design and dives into sci-fi philosophy. If you love games like Portal or Braid, then make sure to not miss out on this one. Okay, but back to topic. Some of you might have heard me mention it in one of my earlier videos. In my past I've worked as a programmer as well as a game designer for several companies in the video game industry, and when people who are thinking about pursuing a career in the industry talk to me, they often tell me a variety of the same story. I'm not a good programmer or good artist, and I'm also not a good game designer, but my strength is ideas. If I had the resources, people that know their stuff, I could blah 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 create critically acclaimed IPs and video games that would be hugely successful, because my ideas are so brilliant. Really, I hear this a lot, and my usual response is, honestly, that ideas are pretty much worthless. I know, that's an overstatement, but it's basically true. I like to compare that to people who think that they just have to come up with the right idea or scheme, not particularly related to video games, but in general, that will make them filthy rich and make everyone around them envious for being such an amazing entrepreneur. Yeah, you know what I mean. And even generally speaking, it doesn't work that way. I'm pretty sure that every person in the world has, over the course of his life, at least one or two business ideas that would make them, with a proper execution, hugely successful. But it's not the idea itself, but it's also the will and the slight amount of craziness and spontaneity to pull through with that idea against all odds. You need to be devoted enough to make a gamble and invest in that idea, often against opposition from people who don't believe in you and with the risk of it being financially a flop in the end. And it's really the same for video games. People who play a lot of games get a lot of ideas for video games that could very well be successful, but it's not written in stone. The execution against all odds is what counts. The perfect example for that is, in my opinion, a Super Mario Bros. Franchise. Think about it. The game idea in a nutshell is a plumber from Brooklyn who has to save a princess from a giant crocodile eating mushrooms to grow and crawling through pipes and fighting against mushrooms and turtles on his journey. If you take that at face value, that honestly doesn't sound like a groundbreaking idea. It even sounds rather silly, but still the concept has managed to become one of the most successful, well-known and beloved franchises in video game history, with dozens of games and spin-offs and variations of the original concept. Or take Sonic. It's a hedgehog that runs apparently at the speed of sound through different stages to free animals from the evil Dr. Robotnik or Egghead, who floats in his hover thing around and wants to do evil, just because. They're both pretty weird concepts and just from their synopsis even very shallow, but it's the constant iteration that made these games timeless classics and amazing video games. The very first stage in Super Mario Bros. For the NES went through months of constant iteration and change to make even the first seconds of the game as perfect as possible. Hundreds of hours of polishing went into making every aspect of the game as polished as possible, with artists, programmers and game designers working closely together to get the absolute most out of it. On the other hand, how many games have you come across where you thought before release something like, wow, that's a great idea, this game will be awesome, and when the game was released you realized that it was pretty underwhelming. The later Sonic games show that pretty well, that the basic concept that created a legendary gaming IP can, with poor execution, spawn some of the worst abominations of gaming history. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Sonic 06. There are so many examples of great ideas that in the end became mediocre or even bad games, and weird and even unoriginal ideas that spawned some of the best games in video game history. I can't highlight that enough. It's iteration that makes great games. Ideas are, for the biggest part, worthless, without good game designers, without skilled programmers, without passionate artists. Constant iteration, repeated trial and error, polishing, endless player testing, and being able to say goodbye to initially good ideas that turn out to be not as good in the actual game. That's what makes for great video games. Of course, that doesn't mean that you have to throw away all your great game ideas that you have locked away in your drawer. If you're really into making games, take an idea and put everything you can into it, so that it can unfold its full potential by hard work and tireless effort. Don't let it be just an idea. Make great games out of it. Take a leap of faith and learn everything you need to know to turn your ideas into something people will remember in a long time. Do you have any great game ideas locked away? Then don't share them in the comments, because maybe someone else sees them and steals them from you. Nah, just kidding. But honestly, tell me what's your take on this topic. On a side note, I want to announce that the voting in my top 7 video games of 2014 video is finished now, and you chose Shovel Knight to be the best game in 2014, at least from my selection of games. Great choice, really. And to keep you guys up to date on my plans for the future with this channel, there's actually 3 bigger episodes I'm working on at the moment, and I have a few very cool guest appearances planned, and I also want to try out a new format, which I've been wanting to do for a while now, so stay tuned, more stuff is coming along. I hope I could give you something to think about with this video, so as always, thanks for watching, keep on playing, and I'll see you next time on RagnarRoxx.